This Sunday, everything is ready in Colombia for the second round of the 2022 presidential elections. In Asia, at least 59 people lost their lives and millions were left homeless in India and Bangladesh after monsoon storms. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from TeleSUR Studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. This Sunday, everything is ready in Colombia for the second round of the 2022 presidential elections to be held. The citizens will have to choose between Gustavo Petro and Rodolfo Hernandez to replace Ivan Duque and govern for the 2022 and 2026 period. Over 39 million Colombians are called to choose who will be the next head of state from 8 hours. Local time, the Director General of the Police said that more than 300,000 members of the public force were deployed for the elections. In the same context, the land and maritime borders of Colombian territory were also closed. All land and river borders crossings were closed 14 hours before the start of the second round of the presidential elections on Sunday. The Registrar Office established that the crossing will only be allowed in cases of major or incidental reasons. The exception also applies to Colombian citizens residing in Venezuela who have their identity card registered to vote in any of the 6 voting posts installed in the border with the neighboring country. At 62 years old and with 3 attempts to reach the presidency, Gustavo Petro, leader of the historical pact, could become the first left-wing president in Colombia. We reconstruct the history of the renowned leader marked by threats against his life, exile, and political persecution.
Gustavo Francisco Petro Urrego, born April 19, 1960, in Ciénaga de Oro, Córdoba, is the oldest of 3 children. His father, Gustavo Petro Sierra, and his mother, Nubia Urrego, moved to the municipality of Zipaquirá, Cundinamarca, in 1970, year in which Misael Pastrana Borrero won the presidency of Colombia amid irregularities, giving life to the M19 guerrilla. Petro joined the M19 guerrilla in 1978, where he carried out political work that drove him into hiding. He was captured, tortured, and sentenced to 1.5 years in prison. In 1990, the M19 demobilized and Petro became one of the advisors to the 1991 constituents. Years later, he obtained a degree in economics from the Externado University of Colombia. His political career began in 1981 as an official of Zipaquirá. In 1984, he was a councilman. He became a member of the House of Representatives in 1991 and from there went to the Senate. He was the first congressman to uncover the relationship between politicians and paramilitaries. In 2012, Gustavo Petro became the mayor of Bogotá. From the Palace of Líbano, he denounced the mafias in the waste management business and proposed to change the system by taking power away from the private sector. The implementation of the new model 1 year later cost him the dismissal from his position and inability to hold public office for 15 years. In 2018, the case reached the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, which declared the Colombian state responsible for the violation of Gustavo Petro's political rights. The young activist, who joined with other young people to build the Bolívar 83 neighborhood in Zipaquirá, seeks to reach the presidency and consolidate his environmental campaign, a banner that has become the backbone of his government program.
Símbolo al ser del conocimiento de la.
And at age 77, Rodolfo Hernandez Suarez expects to win the House of Nariño. Hernandez is a civil engineer and a businessman, the leader of the League of Anti-Corruption political movement. He was mayor of Bucaramanga in 2016, but could not end his mandate because of an investigation by Attorney General's office.
Rodolfo Hernandez was born in Piedecuesta, southeast of Bucaramanga, on March 26, 1945, the year in which President Alfonso López Pumarejo resigned. López Pumarejo's elections are considered the last peaceful one in Colombia's recent history. The candidate is currently facing a criminal trial for irregularities on a $196 million contract for the management of solid waste, which sought to favor the Vitalogic company. His son, Luis Carlos Hernandez, would have been bribed if the company had gotten the contract. One of the most notorious scandals of Hernandez's administration was the blow he gave to Councilman John Claro, for which he got suspended from the mayor's office for 8 months. The electoral campaign of candidate Rodolfo Hernandez continues despite doubts and the investigation. In September 2019, with only 3 months before his term was over, Hernandez resigned from the mayor's office because the Attorney General's office once again suspended him for allegedly participating in politics in favor of the candidate and current mayor of Bucaramanga, Juan Carlos Cárdenas. Businessman and civil engineer Rodolfo Hernandez, a well-known realtor, aspires to succeed President Iván Duque. The criminal trial against the former mayor of Bucaramanga, who pleaded not guilty, is scheduled to begin on July 21st.
And on this election day in Colombia, both presidential candidates have a set of government proposals should they be elected. Let's take a closer look at the historical pact.
Candidate Gustavo Petro and his running mate Francia Marquez of the Historical Pact on Security and Conflict proposed that military service cease to be compulsory, relocate the national police under the Ministry of the Interior, and dismantle the SMAT riot squad. In economic matters, they propose to activate the agrarian reform established by the final peace agreement and a transition of Colombia from coal and oil to an economy based on renewable energies. Regarding health, they say focus will be on preventive and intercultural health, and that they will abide by the Constitutional Court ruling to decriminalize abortion. In international policy, they have said they will guarantee the rights of the migrant population in Colombia without xenophobia or discrimination, and that they will renegotiate free trade agreements. In the field of human rights, they stated they will create the Ministry of Equality and will guarantee the rights of the LGBTIQ, Afro-descendant, and indigenous communities. In education, they stated they will guarantee universal and comprehensive access to early childhood education for children from birth to 6 years of age, as well as access for young people to free public education at the technological and university levels.
And President Nicolas Maduro returned to Venezuela after concluding his international tour of 6 countries in Eurasia, Africa, and the Middle East. The president arrived this Saturday at the Simon Bolivar International Airport after concluding a working tour that led him to sign cooperation agreements with Turkey, Algeria, Iran, Kuwait, Qatar, and Azerbaijan. The tour was aimed at strengthening key areas of development as well as the signing of agreements with member nations of oil-exporting countries and advocates for the stability of crude oil prices in the face of the U.S. intentions to dominate the market. The main areas of the talks were science, technology, agriculture, transportation, energy, tourism, and culture. We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back to From the South. Polling stations in France opened on Sunday for the second round of legislative elections, in which the absolute majority of President Emmanuel Macron's alliance is at stake. Nearly 1,148 candidates are competing in the French legislative elections that will define the composition of the 577 seats of the National Assembly, with projections of strong abstentionism. The polling stations will be open from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. local time until 8 p.m. in the big cities. The main favorites in Sunday's runoff are the ruling coalition, together headed by the ruling party, the Republic on the Move, and the left-wing bloc, the New Popular Social and Ecological Union, headed by Jean-Luc Mélenchon. 48 million French are called to the polls. Jean-Luc Mélenchon, leader of France's left-wing alliance, New Popular Social and Ecological Union, voted in Marseille during the second round of the parliamentary elections. France began voting Sunday in the final round of parliamentary elections, with centrist President Emmanuel Macron's coalition looking to hold off a challenge from a newly formed left-wing alliance. Forecasters predict a rerun of last week's low turnout at polling stations, which open at 8 a.m. and will close at 8 p.m. local time. The vote will be decisive for Macron's second-term agenda following his re-election in April, with the 44-year-old needing a majority in order to push through promised tax cuts and welfare reform and raise the retirement age. More than 6.6 million Andalusians will be able to exercise their right to vote this Sunday, June 19th, in the elections to the Parliament of Andalusia. Andalusians will decide at the polls whether to vote for the second government without a socialist president in more than 40 years of autonomy, in an event with an unquestionable impact on national politics, where Pedro Sanchez will measure his electoral support in the main historical bastion of the PSOE. For this purpose, the 785 Andalusian municipalities will activate from 9 local hours a total of 3,795 polling stations. According to official reports, during the election day, an operation integrated by 19,366 troops will be deployed throughout Andalusia. An opposition demonstration in northern Macedonia called by early elections. Thousands of supporters of a nationalist party gathered Saturday night in the center of the capital Skopje to push against the social democratic government to call for elections 2 years before the end of its term. They accused the executive of plunging northern Macedonia into corruption and devastating the economy. Annual inflation in the tiny Balkan country rose for the 9th consecutive month in May to reach a 14-year high of 11.9%, while food and energy prices have risen by 30 to 50% since the start of the Ukrainian conflict in February. Thousands of people gathered in London to protest against the government's lack of action in tackling the cost of living crisis. Protesters marched from Portland Place to Parliament Square for a rally with speakers including Frances O'Grady, the General Secretary of the Trades Union Congress, which organized the event. Trade union leaders, frontline workers, and community organizations were among those at the demonstration in London, demanding a better deal for workers struggling to cope. According to the TUC, workers were suffering the longest and harshest squeeze on their earnings in modern history. Its research suggested that workers have lost almost 20,000 euros since 2008 because pay has not kept pace with inflation. And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. At least 59 people died during the last few days, and millions are affected by heavy monsoon rains hitting northeast India and Bangladesh this week. The worst hit regions are the northern eastern Indian states of Meghalaya and Assam, where more than 2.6 million people are affected after 5 straight days of rain. Police officials said lightning killed at least 15 people in 8 Bangladeshi districts since Friday, and 4 people were killed in landslides. The situation worsened on Saturday, with widespread flooding and massive power outage in what is believed to be the worst flooding in Bangladesh in more than 100 years. According to weather forecasts, the flooding is expected to worsen over the next 2 days due to heavy rains. And Chinese authorities activate emergency measures to help the population in the midst of the floods affecting several regions of the country. Local authorities in Guizhou in southwest China and Fujian and Zhejiang in eastern China activated emergency flood relief measures, including evacuation of affected residents to safe areas and restoration of vital facilities. State media reported on Saturday that floods in southern Guangxi province in recent weeks caused 5 deaths. A series of heavy rainfall has affected more than 2.34 million people and caused damage in 110 counties in that province. Farmers in the Philippines have been severely affected by the impact of volcanic eruptions of Mount Belusian earlier this month. Farmers say the ashfall is profoundly affecting their income, and they are asking the government for help. The eruption comes amid problems caused by the Russian-Ukrainian crisis. Mount Belusia, located at the southern shore of the island of Luzon, erupted on June 5th and 12th. Rice fields, banana and vegetable plantations, livestock and fish in the city of Juban were damaged by the white corrosive volcanic ash, most of which cannot be saved. farmers in Mauritania, a country known for its deserts and arid climate, are having more difficulty cultivating their crops due to climate change. The recurrent drought is down to the reduction of annual rainfall, which in some areas has dropped to a quarter of levels recorded 30 years ago, according to the United Nations. The International Fund for Agricultural Development also stated that in Guidimaca, a region that used to receive significant rainfall up to more than 1,000 millimeters in the 1990s, now receive barely 400 millimeters per year. Climate change has caused an increase in desertification and, in consequence, a huge drop in the agricultural production of some regions, leaving farmers struggling to grow enough food to eat or sell. On Saturday, a failure at a power plant in the Syrian province of Hama led to a power outage throughout the country. The Syrian Ministry of Energy informed that a transformer malfunction at the As-Sara power plant led to the complete failure of the facility. As a consequence of this event, all the stations were out of order, which caused a general power outage. Power engineers were working to solve the problem and reported they plan to do so in the coming hours. The Russian Defense Ministry reported on Friday that the number of foreign mercenaries present in Ukraine has started to decrease progressively in the face of the military superiority of Moscow's forces. The spokesman for this office, Igor Konashenkov, stated that Kiev is experiencing daily military failures on the ground with significant losses of military personnel and war material, which has led to a wave of desertion by foreign mercenaries who are returning to their countries of origin in view of disparity in the correlation of forces. Konashenkov stressed that Ukraine has increased the remuneration of mercenaries to prevent desertion and assured that the announced figure of 20,000 active fighters against the Russian forces is false. The governor of the self-proclaimed Donetsk People's Republic announced on Saturday that civilians were killed and wounded after heavy shelling by the Ukrainian military. In an official statement, the highest military authorities in Donetsk said that at least 5 civilians were killed and 12 others wounded after Kyiv troops carried out heavy shelling with heavy artillery and more than 200 155 caliber shells this morning. Pro-Russian forces also said the massive shelling was directed at the capital of the republic, hitting mainly a cinema and a bar in the city center. In Russia, the head of the Foreign Ministry's Department for Latin America said that the friendship with the region will grow in the current context. According to the representative of the Russian Foreign Ministry, Alexander Shetinin, countries of Latin America, in particular Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua, are friends of Russia. The official pointed out that the practical results of the Summit of the Americas showed that the discussion was on very specific issues, which is not a coincidence because such issues which used to be taken into account in bilateral relations are impossible to be dealt with now. Furthermore, he warned that the Los Angeles meeting had a broken format because the United States did not send invitations to Cuba, Nicaragua, and Venezuela, abusing their rights as organizers. And TeleSUR expands its signal with new satellite parameters since more than ever the world connects to us and our stories are heard in other faraway nations. These parameters are in place since June 1st in Latin America and the Caribbean, both in English and in Spanish, and quite soon further changes will be implemented for the signals in Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. This news multi-platform will continue providing truthful content to oppose the hegemonic media's narrative and our faithfulness to our audience. And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.